Oh, hello and welcome to the Jerich Show. My name is Javvad Malik. On this week's episode, Erich sings an admission is better. Is it better late than never? It was China and how we can double your money. All this and more coming up on this week's show.
Welcome to the Jerich Show, featuring your hosts Javvad Malik and Eric Krohn. Timely topics, poorly presented.
And alongside me is Sourpuss himself, Mr. Eric Krohn.
Yeah, not in a great mood today, but you did you really just like surprise yourself that you had started the recording?
I was looking at camera 1, then I was looking at camera 3. It was actually camera 2 I was meant to be looking at.
Look at that. Yeah. You know, it's so difficult when you're such a star as yourself, and you have all of these cameras and all this stuff around you. I mean, but what do we expect from a world record setter?
I know. Yes, it's officially in the can. So,
There was a lot in the can, but oh man. Okay, October's going to kill me, folks. Hopefully, I will survive. But it's National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and we're all being brutally beaten with presentations and such. It's why we may be a little bit loopier than usual today. Although Javvad has decided, what is it, Javvad? You're beyond doing presentations. You leave it for the rest of us non-world record setters. Is that what it is?
I didn't say that. I just said that if you're doing like 10 presentations and each of them are bringing in 200 attendees each, and I do one presentation that brings in 2,000 attendees, who's the idiot?
Well, I'm not going to tell you that one I did yesterday, there were 6 people, 4 of them were involved in the presentation being done themselves, as teams had problems letting people in. So I'm not going to tell you stuff like that because you're just going to make it look bad. But anyways,
at least you had the excuse that Teams wasn't letting you in. I once done a presentation at RSA, and it was like in the building. It wasn't the north, it was the west wing, and it's like up on the 4th floor, down the corridor, 3rd room on the right,
beyond the broom closet.
Exactly. It was literally like about a dozen people in the room. There was me, the presenter, obviously. There was like about 3 or 4 staff there. So there's the sound, the mic guy, the person that does whatever. There was like some staff at the door to scan your badges. I begged like 3 or 4 of my friends to come along who didn't have other engagements. And then there was about 4 people who were actually on a panel that was following me. So they were just in the room early just to make sure. And it was a room that could hold 200 people. So it was literally like ding, 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 spread out all over the place. It was like, but
one of these days, Javvad, we should do a Jerich Show special where we talk about our biggest like failures speaking. Because we've all had them. I mean, it just happens, and it's not always our fault. It's not whatever, but time and time again, there are things that happen. There was one of my first presentations I had done here. I ended up ending a half hour early because I thought the presentation was a 30-minute one, so I flew through it, and it turned out it was a 1-hour presentation. I mean, there's all these things that go wrong all the time. It is what it is. You kind of roll with it. But hey, we all make mistakes, right?
Yeah. I remember, and like when you get this embarrassment when you think about certain events, like even if it's like 50 years later or like 20 years later, it's like you think back, oh man, I'm such an ass. Oh, why did I do that for?
That was my dating life in high school.
Yeah,
that was.
I remember this one presentation I done. It was a bit like I completely misread or misunderstood what the audience would be like. So they were expecting one type of like highly technical, in-depth how-to presentation, and I go in there with this 30,000 foot view of like just general trends or something, and there were some unhappy faces in that. So yeah,
Yeah, well, that is one advantage to webinars is you can't see when they're horribly disappointed.
Yeah.
You can't see when they're happy either,
No.
but at least not when they're horribly disappointed. So
No.
we've got that going for us now with
They
COVID.
don't have to pretend that they've got a phone call and they pick up their phone just so they can walk out, never to return. Once we get a presentation, this one guy picks up his phone and is walking out towards. I said, if it's just a phone call, you can leave your bag and coat here. No one's going to take it. He just ignored me. He just walked out.
Oh man, we have had some interesting times. We should do a special show just for those that are beginning to present, maybe to understand that even those that have done it hundreds of times still have issues.
Yeah. I mean, this show being a prime example.
Right, exactly. That's why we adopted the poorly presented portion of this show.
Yes.
We know that things are going to go wrong, and why we're actually looking at going. What are we looking at doing here in the near future,
We're looking at
Javvad?
going live.
We're going live, right? None of this stuff where we can correct where we mess up. Because honestly, folks, we haven't changed anything in probably 50 episodes. And generally that was where Javvad started the show and was still looking around, not realizing he did something stupid. But we're about to start going live, I think, and start pumping this out where you can talk back to us and make fun of Javvad all that you want in the chat. So let's keep that in mind. We just let that slip a little bit.
Okay. Before we move on to the stories, a word from our sponsors.
It's raining men. Hallelujah. It's raining men.
Javad's found a new way to send our information to the Russians. What app is that, Javad?
They wanted a picture. It's called Reface.
Reface.
I don't know who's behind it. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the parent company is a Russian company and they're collecting all your faces. That's what I've only been experimenting with pictures of you, Eric, so far. I haven't used any of my own.
Well, that is it. That's a crazy app. It makes you do all kinds of stuff. That's obviously a still picture. And yeah, we've seen some interesting stuff from that. So check it out, folks. Reface.
No, don't check it out. This is not an endorsement. If you lose your data, if you get breached, don't blame us.
But then we have a story.
Yes, we do have
Okay,
a story.
speaking of stories.
Accenture confirms data breach after August ransomware attack. August, September. 3 months? Is that quick or slow in security times? I don't know.
Whoa, what a shocker this is. Ransomware attacks actually stealing data too. That's quite amazing. And we can file this under the we all kind of knew that anyways thing.
Yeah, we actually spoke about this back in October when this happened, and at the time, the attackers were saying we've stolen data, and Accenture was like, nope, they haven't stolen any data, not from us, not from us. And now they're like, oh yeah, maybe they took a bit of 6 terabytes of data, 6 terabytes, DLP.
Well, and wasn't there like 2 airports that were breached that were customers of Accenture that the group was going, see, we stole credentials. And they're going, no, nothing to see here. I mean,
yeah, I mean, it says like it acknowledged it in the it's not let publicly acknowledge the data breach outside SEC filings or filed data breach notification letters with relevant authorities. So they're still like doubling down in a way. They're trying to hold it on, but I don't know.
It's frustrating because, and I don't want to beat up on Accenture. It's not. But here's the deal: how many times have we talked about this with being honest in your responses? I mean, if you want to degrade somebody's trust, try to cover it up. Try to Uber a data breach, right? Or, and I don't mean hop in the car. I mean treat it like Uber, where they're like, "What? Nothing happened," right?
Yeah.
Have we not learned from this? And that's why we give strong kudos to organizations that are clear and transparent and let potential victims know what's going on when this kind of stuff happens. I mean, it does happen out there, and it's not that we want to accept it, but the way you respond to that is such an important thing. And unfortunately, in this case, Accenture did a very poor job of that, having not even admitted to the real world that data was lost. That's terrible.
Yeah. And to put it in context, what we're also not saying is any time any group sits up and says we breach your data, we don't expect an organization to say, oh, they got us, everyone make mistakes, we're the victim here, of course they stole the data, whatever they took. You need to validate it, you need to verify it and what have you. but then you also need to it's unfair, but then the burden of proof to a degree comes upon you to prove that they didn't take the data, or how did you arrive at that conclusion, or what's your justification. I think that's an important part of all of this, and that's missing. And I say it's not fair because, if someone steals it and they're claiming that technically they're the ones that should prove that we have got your data, but it goes both ways.
Yeah, no, that's true. And a lot of times on the dark web, that's what they do is they put up on these pages, here's proof that we have your information, screenshots of folder structures. I've seen them do passports of employees, all kinds of stuff out on the Tor pages to prove that they've stolen some data. And what happens too is there's certain strains of ransomware that that it's their MO to extract the data, that they are going to take data. Every time they do it, they take a bunch of data. That's part of how they operate. And so when somebody says, oh, I was hit by that strain of data, but no information was taken, you can almost throw up the BS flag at that point, because that in every other case, they took data. It just, you almost have to assume it at that point.
And as we talked about last week, they're even now saying, forget the ransomware.
Yeah.
Let's just steal the data.
Right. That ransomware piece, that's a pain in the butt. Let's just take the data and then extort you. Yeah. Crazy.
Cool. Potential Chinese hackers targeting telecommunications companies. What's this all about, Eric?
So first of all, hackers, let's throw this out there so as not to anger the word. This is not our word. These are bad actors who happen to be hackers. So basically, yeah, what this is basically talking about is how China is really targeting our telecommunications sector for a long time. And this goes back to some other discussions we've had about our critical infrastructure, at least here in the US. I'm sure it's just pristine and in great shape and all up to date there in the UK. But here in the US, we have some ancient crap running and it's poorly secured. It's not really built for security. And frankly, fixing all of that is a very expensive proposition. But we're seeing groups like this, like nation state actors targeting telecommunications. And why would they do that? Well, let's see. Spycraft, like listening in on people's conversations. Can you imagine in the case there was a war, being able to cripple communications like this? What it could do for us? I mean, this is just part of the ongoing, essentially the cyber cold war, if you will, that's happening out there. And we have to understand, and it's not just them doing it. I'm sure we have our offensive, capabilities as well, as does the UK, and all of the countries. That's just part of modern, I guess, people, nation, the scenario that we're in. But yeah, they're talking about how they've been targeting it pretty heavily and getting into things. So you figure every time we catch them in one, there's probably half a dozen that we don't know where they're in.
Yeah. It's part of this that actually last year in the UK, they banned Huawei kit from any of the 5G installations that were going on. So they put it down to removal of any high risk vendors from 5G networks. So the stuff that's already in there is in there, but for future, they've been banning a lot of Chinese.
Huawei is like the punching bag of
they are
of that kind of stuff. I mean, we've banned them in a lot of places. Other places banned them. I mean, they make very inexpensive stuff, and my understanding is the quality isn't bad, but it's very questionable about how tied they are to the government and such things.
Good thing the US never has any companies that are closely linked to the government and share data with the government.
Hey, I'll tell you, I was in DC. It was probably 3 or 4 years ago now. And I did, in a course of a couple of days, I briefed a bunch of the subcommittees. And in one of them, we were down in the Capitol building, down by the SCIF, which is the secure area where these are. And we were sitting outside chatting with somebody from one of the NSA councils. And one of the senators came out of the skiff, and he was pissed. He was yelling about, I don't even know why the hell we let ZTE and Huawei sell around here. And I mean, he's just ranting as he headed down the hallway. I was like, great, sir. Nice to know. He'd obviously been in some briefing and was not very happy about it. I mean, we know that this kind of stuff goes on. It's just kind of interesting to see the names keep popping up, like, oh, they're still in business, huh?
Yeah, maybe it's time to do what Facebook are proposing and go for a name change.
Are they proposing a name change? Facebook? I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I saw that online. I just saw the headline, so I can't really speak to much. But so what I think what I believe is maybe the parent company. You know how like Google is owned by Alphabet Group?
Yeah.
It might be something like that more than actually Facebook, but there's like tons of memes going around about what they should name it and what they should not name it.
The Book of Faces, whatever. Yeah, okay, let's be real sly about this. Yeah, whatever. Society for World Domination. Something like that.
Yep. And we move on to our final story, which is of extreme relevance to us. Hackers stealing browser cookies to hijack high-profile YouTube accounts.
I know. It terrified me when I saw this. I looked around. It doesn't look like anyone's in our YouTube account. I know there's no doubt we've been targeted with our 86 followers or something like that.
Yes. You never know.
No, this is interesting though. They've been, trying to hijack these accounts with the pass the cookie, which sounds delicious, attacks.
Yeah.
So they're stealing passwords and cookies, basically, taking over these accounts then, and apparently selling them for anywhere for like $3 to $4,000. There you go, right there. It says it. Depending on subscriber account. So what do they do with this? Well, of course, they're going to turn around. They're going to try to run scams. They're going to try to do all that kind of stuff from these accounts. And then eventually maybe try to sell it back to the people they stole it from under the guise of, I can help you recover your account because I stole it in the first place. Sort of deal. What do you think?
Yeah. I think it's what was really interesting about this was that the attack would take control of a YouTube creator's account, effectively circumventing two-factor authentication. What? That silver bullet is made of low-quality silver, I tell you. It's
like the electroplated plastic kind of silver. Yeah. We always say that MFA is good, but it is not going to stop everything. There's so many other ways around that.
Yeah. It's fun. But it's interesting because what they did is a lot of time in a lot of the attacks for the popular accounts, they hijacked them, and then they pushed out cryptocurrency scams, effectively saying, hey, give us money and we'll quadruple it and give it back to you.
Didn't we see that on Twitter with a bunch of verified accounts, right?
Yeah, we saw that on Twitter with a bunch of verified, which they got in by telling a Twitter employee, say, hey, I'm one of your colleagues.
Yeah. I am with your IT department. Please provide me with your password.
Yes. Said, well, you sound like a mighty trustworthy person.
Yeah, right. What could possibly go wrong? Right. And then they bounced around till they got in there. And they made, it still blows my mind, all of that stuff. I mean, you have control of all of these verified accounts. And they pissed it all away by trying to make they made like 100K or something from it and ended up in jail. They would have been much better off to sell that access and walk away. But no, we're going to try this stupid Bitcoin thing and have them send money to a wallet that is verified to a real person.
Yeah.
What my old cop buddy used to say, we don't always catch the smart ones.
Oh, you still a free man? Well, he doesn't know, and neither do we. So, hope you enjoyed it. Until next week, stay secure, my friends.